With UTVs becoming more popular, manufacturers are rushing to fulfill orders. Unfortunately, a lot of times that means that quality control starts to suffer. Now, we feel that ultimately manufacturers and dealerships are responsible for checking these machines, especially when they start cresting $30,000. But ultimately, it's your responsibility to make sure that your car is safe for you and your family to go out in the desert. So we're putting together a little checklist. This is our 2022 Polaris RZR Turbo R. We're just gonna go over the car top down, front to back. First things first, is find your owner's manual and read it front to back. Get very comfortable with it. There's a lot of good information in here, from torque specs to fluid levels and fluid types.
The next thing we recommend is go ahead and pull your tool bag that the dealer should have given to you. You open this up in the Polaris one. This will be your clutch tool to release it and change the belt. There's an air gauge. There's another clutch tool, and then also to adjust the preload on your springs. So go ahead and look through that, know what you have, make sure you put that in a glove box or under a seat somewhere safe. The next thing we go through is the cage attachments. Let's make sure that the cage is actually put together properly. So you can see the shank sticking out. These are plenty tight, always good to check them, but we're at least visually checking them under the rubber flap there. And we're gonna go to the next frame connection in the middle. Go ahead and look at these points, make sure they're tight. And then you'll have some in the back on this car. In the back here, go ahead and make sure that those are tight. Obviously, we're on the passenger side right now, so you're gonna wanna check the driver's side as well. And then we go to the top. These are bolted together cages. So what we have is bolts on the crossbars and everything as well. And we wanna go ahead and check all these. In our case, you can see on this rear crossbar, the bolts were not tightened, or the nuts were not tightened rather. And we're gonna go ahead and have to tighten those down before we take it out for the first time. So this is the reason we're talking through this, is you can see in this case that something was missed. So that's why we're going through this. The next thing you're gonna wanna go through is just check all your harnesses. You're gonna check the bolted locations, make sure that's all tight. This is a critical safety component, so you wanna check that. Make sure down on the lower section, this is tight down in here. No loose bolts or anything, both sides. In the front, I guess one note also I wanna make is, if your car comes with 3-point harnesses, just a standard style automotive safety belt, we recommend replacing those right away with a 5-point kit. Those are not safe for off-roading. Unless you're working on a farm, I would say you need to switch those things out. In this case, these come with 4 points from Polaris. You can see that this would also not be safe for me. This is twisted right here. So I have something wrong. I'm gonna need to untwist it, make sure it's all put on properly. Adjustments are here, and then also down at the bottom here. But clearly, I wanna get this all adjusted for my passenger and then the driver as well, and all passengers, to make sure it's tight and snug. You want these resting on your shoulder, pulling back. We will be replacing these with a proper 5-point harness mounting system.
So the next thing, you're gonna wanna check your coolant and oil levels. So on this RZR, you got these 4 bolts in the back. These are T40s, and these beds just pop out pretty easy.
You'll see over here, you have the coolant. Obviously the cold line is there. There's a little top section piece you pull off to fill it. The air box is right here, but you have to access it on these new RZRs, access it from the inside. We'll go ahead and show you that in a second. The older RZRs, you would go ahead and pull the filter apart right there.
So in these cars, your engine oil dipstick is gonna be up here towards the front of the engine. So you can just pull that out and check it when you do your pre-inspection. And then if you are low, there's your fill. Very accessible with the bed removed. So to check the air filter on these new cars, the rear seats come out super easy. So you're just gonna, there's a tab back here, you pull that, the top half comes off, and then they have these quick release tabs all along the back here. or just quarter turn. There's 3 per side. And now you have access to your air filter. So you can pop this off. Obviously you want to make sure you even have an air filter. And
perfectly clean air filter. The other thing on the Pro R, you do access the clutch from this lower area. With the 4-cylinder, they had to put the clutching in the front. I'm sure you can find lots of videos on those. This is a Turbo R, so it still has the turbo 2-cylinder, and that has the clutching on the driver's side, just as the older models did. So for this, all we're really doing is accessing the air filter here. It looks good, we're happy with it. Gonna go ahead and put this panel back, the seats back in. Next, we're gonna go ahead and just look at the body panels on both sides. Just make sure there's no rubbing when you open the door. There's no interference on the 2 panels. We've come across cars where they do hit each other. There's plastic's loose or something and they make contact. So good idea just to look through that, make sure you don't have any issues. That way you can either contact the dealer or adjust it. There's almost always adjustment in these on the panels between the door skins. In this case, on the front latch, for us, it's unsatisfactory how these close. Super common on these cars, all the demo units we've tried and everything, it's really similar. So if you notice, you push this close and it does the first latch, but not the second one. So it's loose and you can't get it to latch all the way. So we'll likely, it looks to be that this rubber is just a little too thick. So we'll likely either trim it out or to heat it up to distort it. Maybe we'll try adjusting, but it looks like we're gonna have to trim out a bit of that rubber to make sure this door gets fully secured, because to me this is not acceptable, and we'll get that fixed up.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is alignment and toe. So first things you're going to want to do is make sure your steering wheel is straight, and just verify by getting a rough measurement, center line to center line, and then you're going to want to check the back of the tire and get center line to center line there. Now whatever those numbers are, we like to run our cars towed in no more than 1/4 inch. How you like your car feeling in the desert's really up to you. Towed out up to 1/4 inch, you're gonna cut into corners a little bit better, but you're gonna start to feel a little bit of wandering at high speeds. Towing in a little bit, again, no more than 1/4 inch, it's gonna have a lot more straight line stability, but you might feel a little bit of pushing in the corners and turns.
You also want to check your tire pressure before the first time you go out. The Polaris book says to do 18 PSI, so we'll go ahead and just check that. Looks like we are at about 18. Realistically, we typically run our tires between 12 and 15 for the desert. It really depends what you're doing, but it's a good idea to have your tire pressure before you go out, just in case they're way too high or way too low. You want to always check those before every ride. Next thing we're going to do is check the torque on the lug nuts. Just a good thing to do every once in a while. They do loosen up over time sometimes, and you want to check your owner's manual to make sure you have your torque wrench set to the spec. In this case, it is extremely high. It says 148. That's higher than I typically do, but we're going to go ahead and check it. It's good. You also want to go around and look at the suspension hardware. So you don't want any of this to come loose when you're on the trail. So just go ahead and feel it out, make sure everything feels tight. We don't have anything loose. Good idea to torque check those as well. You also see in here the brake fluid. Always a good idea to check the brake fluid before you go out. Again, these safety critical items, you do not want to be at risk while you go in there. The other thing we'll do is we'll go around and look at the spring settings. So grab a tape measure, just look at where your preload collar is, how much exposed thread do you have, where's your crossover ring here.
So one more thing that we like to check is your shift linkage. So what we noticed when we picked up this car is when you shift all the way into high, it looks like it's in high, but it takes a little bit of extra love to get in there. So what we're gonna do is on the back of these cars, This is your shift linkage right here, and this is typical on all these CVT cars. Is you're going to have a linkage in here. You could bust these nuts loose and adjust them to align as while you're down here. It's a great idea to make sure, just another visual inspection of all your drive chain components. Check your CV boots, make sure that they're tight. New or used cars, this can happen, is the boots can come off, grease can start leaking out. Once you lose the grease in your CV, you're gonna start damaging your CVs. They're gonna get too hot, and either the cage or the star of the bearings, one of them's gonna fail, and you're gonna be stranded with a blown apart CV. Another thing we really like to check is your brake pads and your caliper bolts. We've had caliper bolts back out on us on the trail. It's super not fun. So just make sure these are torqued to spec. Again, that's something you can find in your owner's manual. And then make sure your pads are in good shape. And with a brand new car like this, it's gonna take about 100 miles, I'd say at most, to get these broken in properly.
Again, we're here in the back checking everything out, checking the suspension bolts, checking our sway bar, make sure nothing's loose there. Another critical thing before you go out, you wanna go ahead and pull your clutch housing apart, familiarize yourself with the belt procedure, removing the belt. That way, if you're out on the trail, you're not caught by surprise, you know what's up. So all you gotta do is really take this intake tube out, and then you'll see all the bolts running all the way around the clutch cover. That'll pop right out, and you'll be able to see the belt and the clutches, primary and secondary, and go from there. At least know that you're covered there. Another thing we recommend is checking for recalls on your vehicle. Go ahead and call the dealer, look it up online. You can find places where these recalls are listed, and you want to make sure that you're covered. For example, on these Turbo R Pro R models, in the front, the inner tie rods had a recall, and we made sure all that was done. Another big thing, okay, these things have stickers all over the place. Do us a favor, don't leave these stickers on here. You want to look cool when you're out there. Get this crap off the car. We don't want to see that on there. Obviously, they're a pain in the ass to get off, so what we're gonna do is have to use some freaking Gooby Gone to get this crap off of here. But we don't want to be seen with these things out there. They're there, they're on the plastics, they're on lights, they're all over the damn place. So go ahead and take those things off, especially the wheel ones. That's a joke. Peel that off. Look at these tail lights. Get that out of here.
So now that we've gone over a brand new car, usually that also means a brand new rider. So you guys, we're all about safety here. We really, really want to push harnesses and trail safety, because it's not just about you or your passengers, it's also about other riders on the trail. So learn your hand signals.
Yeah, the hand signals, if you're not familiar, you'll sometimes see people do this. They're not waving at you. They're saying that there's 5 riders behind them. This means there's 1 more rider behind them. And if you're at the end of the group, you want to go ahead and do that. You know it's clear to keep running the trail. So just a reminder on that for everybody.
And it's also, guys, do not litter out there. We, across the country, are fighting to keep riding areas open. You can drop belt pieces, body panels, lunch, whatever it is. There's plenty of room in these things for a trash bag. So pick up after yourself. Let's keep these areas open. Let's keep everybody safe.
This is a community, guys. We want to just keep it together. We want to keep everybody in line, make sure we can keep enjoying these and not have them close all of our riding areas down. If we're safe, if we work together, we can keep this going. You don't want to run into any other cars either, or you may have to replace the whole front end of your car.
Video on that later.
This is Colin and Harley from FASTLAB UTV.
Catch you next time.
See you guys.